Good evening, everyone. It is great to be with you yet again for another virtual Masonic education series brought to you by the Rubicon Masonic Society. This episode is a special one. This marks our 75th episode since we began our virtual Masonic education series back in 2020. For everyone that has helped behind the scenes, that's a great milestone. We should all be very proud of it, and I appreciate everyone for their help. And I thought perhaps before we kick it off, that I would like to relay a few statistics that has brought us to this point in our journey. With 75 episodes during that time in 2020, we have also produced a Masonic documentary, produced transactions from the Rubicon Masonic Society, those were published. We have also completed our fifth Festive board and third conference, in addition to the 75 episodes since 2020. We have attained almost 5,000 total subscribers to our YouTube channel. Lifetime views as of this evening is 178,000 and change. Total watch time almost 47,000 hours since we began this. Our top video since we began is our episode 3, which is the Entered Apprentice degree, which currently has a little over 43,000 views. And our two most recently added and popular videos, Debate Night 1 and 2, brought to you by William Ware and Rubicon, are doing very, very well as in addition, and we have more debate nights to come. So I just want to once again thank everyone for participating, being with us. Freemasonry is often a complex topic, but nothing helps to shed light and bring us together like brothers who are of like mind, focusing on self-improvement to learn and Masonic education. So once again, brothers, thank you. We will begin this evening. Worst brother Dan Kemble, would you please do the honors of delivering our opening devotion?
Good evening, brothers and friends. Join me in prayer, please. Great architect of the universe, we give you thanks for bringing us together in this assembly, bringing us together that we might explore Freemasonry. We pray that our transactions of this evening would be pleasing in your sight and that everything that we do would reflect to your glory and honor. And we pray this in your holy name. Amen.
So mote be. Thank you, worshipful. Brothers and friends, our virtual Masonic education aims to help us to become better men, always devoted to our family, our faith, our country. May we all come together tonight to learn, to subdue our passions, to discipline our minds, and to improve ourselves through the tools of Freemasonry. Any opinions expressed during this education will be those of the presenter or participant. They do not necessarily reflect the views of any lodge or Grand Lodge or the Rubicon Masonic Society. By participating with us, you consent to our guidelines, and our full disclaimer can be found on our website, rubiconmasonicsociety.com/disclaimer. Few additional protocol, and we'll jump right into tonight's topic. These are not tiled meetings, brothers and friends. Masons and non-Masons are more than welcome to attend and participate, so please always be mindful. Anything discussed should be suitable for Masons of all degrees as well as non-Masons. Of course, gentlemanly manners at all times. Please no drinking alcohol, no smoking, no food or foul language during the meeting, no discussion of politics or religion at any time. In an effort to best ensure that our meetings are as enjoyable as possible, please, recommended attire is coat and tie. Please type your name and any appropriate Masonic title or location under your video. If you're not a Mason, please simply type guest. Please enable your video camera if dressed appropriately so we can all see you. Please reduce any background noise. Keep your microphone muted when not speaking. Turn off all other computer programs that may be a distraction. And finally, as always, please be patient should any technical difficulties occur. Brothers and friends, tonight we are going to discuss in detail and open up for conversation towards the end the event that we just completed, our 2025 Festive Board and Conference held in Lexington at Spindletop this past month. We will break this down into two sections. Part one, Worship Brother Bizak will address how the conference idea came about, its design, the pre-conference survey, and what the common issues were found to be. Part two, Worship Brother Kimball will address the survey, some information provided in those questions, and note the facilitators that are also played a role in our conference discussion and facilitation as well. So, without further ado, Worship Brother Bizak, will you please begin as you see fit?
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Good evening, brother. After we explored 44 Research Lodge websites in 36 different jurisdictions in the United States back in August and October of last year, the Ware Lodge of Research reached out to these lodges, and we made contact with 52 of the current and past leaders and active members of 28 of those lodges. The other 16 did not respond to our phone messages, regular mail that we sent, or emails. There was a book, Masonic Research Lodges, Bodies and Societies, by Worshipful Brother Ken Stasinski in New York. It was published in late 2024. It was very helpful in the task, as was Jay Hochberg, who was at the time master of the American Lodge of Research. The discussions that we had with those involved in those 28 lodges we were able to make direct contact with evolved into a snapshot poll, and that identified 12 strikingly consistent themes and common concerns regarding the condition, the role, and perspectives on the relevance of Masonic research lodges and societies in the 21st century. Now, the majority supported the idea that a conference of research lodges and societies would be helpful to facilitate a broad discussion about the role and the exploration of ideas, including what successes that other research lodges had in facing these common concerns. And as a result, Ware Lodge of Research designed an initiative that would be a research project in itself, actually. And arrangements began to be made for the conference to take place in mid-September of 2025 in Lexington, Kentucky, at Spindletop Hall. And that was to coincide with the Rubicon Masonic Society's 13th annual Festive board that we always have at Spindletop. The sponsors we had for this and accumulated over the 10-month planning period was not just Rubicon and Lexington One, but the Philalethes Society, the Masonic Restoration Foundation, along with lodges in Ohio, Kentucky, and Patrick Craddock of the Craftsman's Apron. They all became sponsors of the conference. So after 10 months of preparation and more discussion with these various lodges around the nation, 73 men from 15 jurisdictions and 3 national societies met. Now, the conference was designed to be a working conference, not a come and listen to papers or a passive learning experience, but instead a more collaborative event where attendees would actively participate in discussions, any problem solving, and exchanging ideas that tackled specific challenges facing 21st century research lodges and society. And all this was based on the aim of identifying practical and actionable outcomes without any breakout sessions. Now, in essence, every attendee was a member of the panel, as it were. So the agenda for the day was made up of these 12, what I referred to as strikingly consistent themes and common concerns that were identified in that pre-conference snapshot poll. And these topics were facilitated in 6 sessions that took place with everyone in attendance in the same room. Each session was moderated by a well-known Masonic researcher and leader in the fraternity. They were from 6 different jurisdictions in the United States and Canada, all of whom are honorary members of the Rubicon Masonic Society. So the entire day was professionally filmed with plans to edit it accordingly so that it can be posted on the Rubicon streaming channel in the future. We don't know what that day will be yet, but you'll be notified if you want to watch. Here's the summary of the 12 themes of the pre-conference snapshot poll. Number 1, it's found that there was an over-reliance on a small subset of members. The assumption that members are inherently motivated to contribute has significantly led to an over-dependence on a small group of individuals carrying the workload and producing results in most all research lodges. There's a perceived obsolescence of traditional structures, and modern platforms such as podcast, social media, and virtual forums have simply outpaced the traditional framework of research lodges and made them appear outdated or inaccessible to younger members, and a widening of the engagement gap. Number three was ineffective websites. The majority of the respondents do not consider their websites effective. There's an underfunding issue, which was number four. Most research lodges believe they were completely underfunded. Number five was a clear need for a strategic direction, an agenda, a long-term planning ability that they believed essential if lodges were to assure that they could remain focused and productive and aligned with this evolving need of the craft. Number six was the impact of external pressures, and that came from declining Masonic membership and a lack of sustained engagement that places this significant strain on research lodges, resulting in reduced human and financial resources that threaten their viability. Number seven was opportunities for collaboration. A need was identified to foster partnerships with other research lodges and societies, both within and beyond their jurisdictions, hopefully to demonstrate their value and relevance to a much broader Masonic community. Number eight was a declining content, quality, and reference. There was organizational complacency and production of content that simply failed to resonate with contemporary Masonic audiences. Number nine was low membership engagement. It found that only about 1.5% of members within a jurisdiction belong to research lodges, and of those, roughly 14% actively attended or participated in their meetings and events. Number 10, there was a lack of differentiation, and that meant that many believe their research lodges merely mimic the meetings of their home lodges and offered little unique value. 11 was a risk of irrelevance, and without addressing the challenges, they believe the role of research lodges continue to risk becoming more peripheral than they are now and diminishing their potential to contribute meaningfully to the intellectual and historical legacy of the craft. And finally, number 12, there was a desire for action. 85% indicated they are actively seeking, and this is a quote, to do something, unquote, to generate interest and activity in their research lodges. 63% of those indicated that no significant progress to do something has been achieved in recent years. Now, the primary conclusion of that snapshot poll was that there is a clear and a pressing need for Masonic research lodges to address long-standing as well as the new systemic challenges, and to do that by fostering collaboration, improving the quality of the content they produce, and establishing either independently or jointly some strategic direction. Now, optimistically, research lodges believe they can reassert relevance and ensure some constructive contribution to the intellectual and historical legacy of Freemasonry in the 21st century. So with that overview of the pre-conference poll, I'll turn it over to Worshipful Brother Kimball to address what we presented during the conference as a post-conference survey. Dan?
The survey that we created is actually geared towards both research lodges and non-research lodges as well. This is the third survey or series of surveys in which William Ware Lodge of Research has undertaken. In the first two, well, the first one was around 2017. The second one is an ongoing project that started in about 2020 and continues to this day. And one of the primary um, uh, areas of result that we focused on in those particular surveys has been the low rate of return. It's been very, very difficult to get men to participate in those surveys. In both of the prior surveys, we had a rate of return of around 20%. We really don't have a number on this newest survey yet because we haven't sent it out as high a number of potential respondents yet. But the survey consists of 66 questions. You do not have to be a member of a research lodge to answer the questions in the survey, but the survey revolves around your perceptions of what is the role of a research lodge, what can research lodges do to advance the mission of Freemasonry in the 21st century, and to what extent are research lodges engaging in activities now that help to meet that mission and advance that mission. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete the survey. It's not a multiple choice survey. We're asking you to think about your responses. Some of them are open-ended questions, and what we're looking for is your thoughts and your willingness to express those thoughts about the current state of Freemasonry and the role that research lodges play in that. Now, many of you who are participating in this particular assembly this evening have already responded to that. If you have not, please don't be surprised if you receive an email with a link to the survey. And if you do, in fact, receive that email and get that link, we'd appreciate it if you would take the time to complete the survey and return it to us. If you haven't completed the survey, if you don't receive an email, that survey is available online right now. It's on the William O. Ware Lodge of Research website. It's in the upper left corner. You can see a link to the survey. And if you'll click on that, you can electronically complete the survey and send it back to us. It does take a little while to complete it, and it takes some thought. And one of the things that we find this survey measuring is the extent to which men are willing to invest their time in responding to the survey and sharing some thoughtful answers. What we have found, unfortunately, in the past is that we have a lot of folks that really aren't willing to take the time to respond fully to the questions that we presented. I'm hoping that the fact that you're here with us this evening and that you're willing to set aside your time to participate in an assembly like this is an indicator that you would also be willing to give us your thoughts and work through the 66 questions on this particular survey. We will, of course, share the results of the survey. Once we get an appropriate number that we believe is a reasonable snapshot, we will compile those results and we'll share them. And the survey itself is an ongoing research project as well. We realize that the survey is a long one, and we realize it takes some time to do it. But we also sort of take the attitude that if we don't start to collect this kind of data now, when will we? And this is our ground zero. And we are starting at this particular point to collect as much information as we possibly can about the activities of research lodges, the perceptions of research lodges, and the direction that research lodges will need to take on a going forward basis to, in fact, advance their mission of advancing Freemasonry. Worshipful Brother Brian, I will pass this back for a recap of our individual presentations.
Okay. Thank you, Worshipful. So, brothers, if you can see the screen, please either at the end or sometime this week, visit Ware Lodge of Research.com. Click on the survey link. You'll be taken directly to the electronic version and take a few minutes and give us your thoughts. This is extremely important for the improvement of Freemasonry, and we value your input. I'll go through briefly some of the speakers that we had and give you kind of a little overview of the evening, and we can open it up for some question and discussion. Our first speaker of the evening at the conference was S. Brent Morris, and his topic was the historical role of research lodges, lessons from the past. Some key questions that he brought up to the audience to facilitate discussion was how have research lodges shaped the development of Freemasonry? And what can we learn from the successes and failures? Our second speaker was Worship Brother David L. Daughtry, and his topic was bridging the gap, connecting research lodges with regular lodges. His key questions were why do many regular lodges fail to engage with research lodges? And how can research lodges make their work more accessible and relevant to everyday Masons? Our third presenter of the day was past Grand Master David J. Cameron, and his topic was exploring the use of technology to enhance our research, collaboration, and dissemination of knowledge in the digital age. Modernizing Masonic research. His key questions: how can research lodges leverage technology to reach a wider audience? And what role do digital archives, virtual meetings, and online publications play in the future of Masonic research? Halfway through, our fourth speaker was Worship Brother Rich Hansen. His topic was relevance in the 21st century, addressing contemporary issues through Masonic research. Some key questions he brought up for the day was, how can research lodges address modern societal changes such as engagement, ethics, and leadership? And what role can research lodges play in making Freemasonry relevant to our younger generations? Our second to last speaker was Worship Brother Adam Kendall. His topic was the art of Masonic research, and I would venture to say it is an art. Developing and sharing high quality work. Questions that he posed: what makes Masonic research impactful and engaging? And how can research lodges mentor members to produce high quality papers, presentations, and publications? And finally, last but not least, Right Worship Brother Andrew Hammer spoke about the future of Masonic research lodges, and that this now being a call to action. Key questions: what was the long-term vision for Masonic? What is the long-term vision for Masonic research lodges? And how can they continue to survive the growth in the decades to come? So what I'd like to do is open it up to the floor at this point. What is the role and long-term vision, brothers, for Masonic research lodges, in your opinion? I think that's a great question to start with. And I would also be curious to know how many here are involved in any of their current research lodges in their jurisdictions. So the floor is open for any discussion. And if we don't get any hands raised, I'll be happy to call on David Crickard first.
Brother Brian, we have Worshipful Brother Daughtry, who
Yes.
was a facilitator with us tonight, and also Adam Kendall, who's the current president of Philalethes and editor of Herodom. He's with us tonight, too. We might get their thoughts and provoke some more conversation.
Yep. Very good. So, David, your name was invoked. David Daughtry, would you like to chime in?
I can chime in. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. I literally just got out of class about half an hour ago, and my brain is still thinking biochemistry. So I apologize for what comes out of my mouth.
No
Um,
problem.
um, yeah, I mean, I think the conversation in general was good. Lots of the questions you've already highlighted and summarized for us. I mean, thinking about the question that you asked about the long-term goal, um, I think that well, I mean, maybe take a step further back. You go back to the kind of the 12 key points that came out of that pre-conference poll that Brother Bizak was talking about. Um, the one that caught my attention in there was the need for the strategic direction. I think my own lodge in Ohio, my own research lodge in Ohio, as well as many of the others I've interacted with, that seems to be kind of the underlying challenge is that we're doing a lot of good things. We're bringing in a lot of good people, but we don't really have a plan for what we're going to do with them once we get them. And I think that that ties directly into your question about the long-term goal
Mhm.
is that if you don't know where if you don't know where you're headed, if you don't know what the plan is, it's hard to come up with a short-term goal, let alone a long-term goal. And that would be my challenge to anybody here that is participating in a research lodge or thinking about participating in a research lodge is to really focus on and try to come up with an answer to the why. Why am I here? Why are we doing this? What do we expect to get out of this? And I'll freely admit that, this is a set of questions that I am constantly thinking over and challenging myself. And I don't know that I have a clear and concise answer that I can give either. But I think it is something that we need to think about, and I think it is the challenge that we need to, if not approach first, at least need to approach soon.
Mhm. Agree. Thank you. Worst brother Adam Kendall, would you like to chime in? Are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My apologies. I'm just off of something else, so I am not dressed appropriately, but I am in my photo. So,
No problem.
um, so with I think David pretty much said what I would say too with engagement. Um, the idea of research, it's always that Shangri-La idea. We are interested in delving into the history, sacred mysteries, etc. But then when we're faced with the prospect of really doing research, we don't know what to do with that. Many of us have done research, perhaps in high school or a bit in college, but is that sufficient for what is asked of us in research lodges? Is there an outlet for that? Would we do a lot of work and there would be no, despite it being a research lodge, would be there be no opportunity to share that information beyond just having, just a short presentation at a symposium or during the lodge meeting? Um, my experience in some of the research lodges I've been to or belong to is that there's very few actually doing research. Um, and more like the idea of research and hearing stories about history. And that's very valid, but that the lodges can't stay engaged if there's hardly anybody doing anything. One of my lodges would have a sort of a salon where those engaged in research could present their notes, their thoughts, and get feedback on where they should be going with their research. But again, that is dependent on actually doing the research. And so it's a really hard question. How do you engage people to do something that they may not feel qualified to do?
Mhm.
How do we mentor them and encourage them? Because it is daunting, especially when they're faced with the prospect of, hey, I want to send in my manuscript to Philalethes or Scottish Rite Research Society, and then they're faced with a review board,
Mhm.
right? Many have not had their work scrutinized at all.
Mhm.
And that can be daunting, and getting your first rejection letter. So, like I said at the symposium, it's up to the lodges to really come up with that curriculum to that their primary focus should be engaging their members to do research. And part of that research should be tied in with the Grand Lodge archives, their lodge archives, and any other Masonic library that exists. Because without that, none of these items or documents will exist. One of my great frustrations is that there is a current trend to sort of shoot for the moon with research, and with a lot of subjects that are far out of our depths, or should be uh, engaged with natural steps, baby steps, but they don't really engage with the resources at hand,
Mhm.
right? And the paradox, or even the sad irony, is that they are engaged in some type of research, but these documents, these artifacts of extreme historical value, are still rotting under our feet. So having a clear vision, and that's easier said than done, you can't mandate it, but I do think that, and I spoke about this weekend at our Grand Lodge communication when I was manning the Philalethes booth, is to really be sensible about what you're doing with research, if you're in a research lodge or not, but really start to understand what research is. And it dawned on me that perhaps research lodges, you need to engage with somebody who is a historian or any other discipline within, like, the humanities, or sociology, and or look at a junior college's curriculum, and kind of get their idea of what they could be instructing their brothers, just as a primer, right? So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Well, let's stay with that for a moment, please, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What, in your perspective, what is Masonic research? To explain it to somebody that maybe has not really given it thought or fully understands it. And then what would be some examples, even if they're simple?
Sure. Masonic research for me has very little difference to actual just research, academic research. What questions do you have? How are you going to answer them? From these questions, what would be your thesis statement? How will you produce the answers to these questions and answer that, and illustrate your thesis statements using appropriate um, primary and secondary sources? So in Freemasonry, we tend to think that the rules don't apply, that we can put out anything and call it whatever we want. So therefore, you can take a picture off the internet and repost it, or you can, for your lodge, read someone else's work, and that's sufficient.
Mm.
Um, these things are real, and they exist in the real world. And so learning what actual research is, because it's one thing to be interested in the subject, and to be sort of to take it on a hobbyist level, and that's where it starts, to be curious, what is this, I'm interested in this, but to take the time and allow yourself the time to formulate their questions. This may bring up the issue of jumping in too soon, right? I'm interested in research, but I've never done it before. So therefore, my answer to you or anybody would be, not the royal you, the royal we, would be to find out what research means. And for me, that's what it is from an academic background, is to answer these questions using primary and secondary sources, to read historiographies, to read what other people have read, because as I said at the conference, you really can't know what you want to do or understand the subject without reading. You're going to read a lot first and take notes if you can, and then start to formulate your own opinion, or find an aspect of Freemasonry. Let's pick on Freemasonry that you enjoy. There's so many different aspects. Um, there's very popular ones such as esotericism or Freemasonry during the long 18th century and Enlightenment period, et cetera. Those two topics alone require an immense amount of study and skills, sometimes language skills, and
Mm.
also objectivity above all. right? Not going into it with an agenda or trying to prove oneself a guru and present your special plan for the world. That's also what I find problematic with a lot of the lectures going on nowadays, is that there's more of they're opinion pieces rather than genuine research. So the to go back to your question, the research lodges could possibly formulate a curriculum around what is research, as just as I've sort of overly, simplistically explained it, is to answer these burning questions using fact-based evidence and not cherry picking, but to really understand what your questions is, and maybe your perspective is going to change, or maybe it's too much, or you've just proved yourself wrong and you have to throw it away, right, and start over. That is research too. You try and you experiment and you fail. David Doherty knows this as a scientist. There's sometimes you approach it the wrong way and you have to start over again. And the historian will do that too, or have their minds completely changed. And being honest about it, and you can even use that as grist for the mill in your paper, how you set out to prove one thing and discovered another, right? It's a learning process, and part of rather than it sounding grueling and arduous for the novice or intermediate or even expert levels, it's meant to be, and it can be quite frustrating. I'm in the middle of that right now. But it's extremely worthwhile and fun too. And I try to describe it in terms of transformation. When you are when you are completed with that paper and say it's accepted, you will be a changed individual. Trying to bring it more personal. You are going to grow. This is part of the growth that was promised to you in Freemasonry. You can't do anything. You can't become Freemasonry cannot make you a better man unless you're willing to find the tools to make yourself that better man, right? And part of our second degrees talks about education. And so this is exactly what we're talking about, utilizing the working tools of that second degree and the lessons of that second degree. So very, very basic, learning what research is. What do you intend to do with the information? How will you find that information to prove your thesis? How will you answer these questions? What does it mean? The overall analysis is not just taking these facts, throwing it on paper. What does it mean? What does it mean to Freemasons? What does it mean for history? Because I don't believe in couching a Masonic research project solely in Freemasonry. Freemasonry is a byproduct of society. It doesn't create society. It actually mimics society. It's a product of it. How does it interact with it? Right. And that's a lot you can do with. What is the inspiration of these lodge members? What was their intent? I deal with a lot of problematic individuals in Freemasonry in my historical studies. That's what I enjoy, the different people. You might call them, some of them are renegades, some of them are downright strange. I enjoy those types of people because they don't square up with some of the preconceived notions of what we think a Mason should be, right? They're products of their time, and how are they products of their time? So that's how I parse this out. What makes this person tick? How does it square up against what Freemasonry was in their era? So asking brothers to really sit and think how they should be researching. What is research on a collegiate or a university level? What can it be for them? But I have to state that many of our research lodges and societies will expect something that is fairly academic, and that's not to scare anybody off. That's an acquired skill as well, but to approach it with seriousness and with the intent to use that formula, because it's the best way to disseminate information, right? It's the best way to analyze information.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Anyone here has done research, Masonic research before, written a paper? And if so, what about, or have you thought about it? Anything created that curiosity? Anything maybe you've ever been confused about or inspired about? Because those are great seeds for Masonic research.
Worshipful Brother Brian, while people are contemplating that question, may I speak for just a moment about my experiences at Ware Lodge of Research? And I don't know exactly what other research lodges have adopted as policies. Um, to become a member of Ware Lodge of Research requires a petition, and attached to that petition is a sample of the petitioner's writing. And we ask men to engage in Masonic research and give us a sample of their Masonic research when they petition our lodge. And we do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, it creates some skin in the game for them. And secondly, in many instances, perhaps in most instances, it is the first time that any of those men have actually sat down and engaged in any level at all of Masonic research. And we think that is a significant step past that first barrier. And that is, we get men who want to be members of Ware, and we say, okay, let's do some research. Pick a topic that is of interest to you. And we don't ask that people come back with a master's thesis, but just write something on which they're interested. And in the process of writing that particular essay or paper or whatever it is that they're writing, what I have found and noticed is that in many instances, that particular piece of work has led them to continue to explore that. And I'm going to now throw Brother Darren Gullah, who's with us, under the bus. Because not so long ago, Brother Darren petitioned Ware Lodge of Research. And Brother Darren has had an interest for some time in the relationship between Freemasonry and the Roman Catholic Church. He's had an interest in Freemasonry and how it evolved during the period of the British Reformation. So what I have seen from Brother Darren is the evolution of his research, over the course of the years, and how he has become more deeply involved in those particular issues. And I think part of that, of course, he's an academician in his own right. But part of that is, I think, once you cross that first hurdle of doing Masonic research, then it becomes a little easier to take your research to the next level. Brother Darren, I don't know if there's anything in there that you want to speak to or not.
Well, thank you, Worship Brother Dan. I know I have presented both of those particular papers and on our platform, and the first one just was more personal in that I was raised Catholic and knew that there was some kind of conflict with Freemasonry in the church, and just wanted to know what the deal was. Because when I was raised, I realized that I wanted to be more involved in my church and wanted to just find out what the deal was with these relationships. So that sparked that. And then as I explored that even further, I kind of got the impression that, well, wait a minute, why don't I flip and that kind of, you see a little bit of intolerance from the church towards Freemasonry. And then the thought of the English Reformation seemed to turn that almost on its head quite a bit. And that, why are we so tolerant, and just trying to find out those reasons. And so that's kind of how I got started. And then it kind of taking me into almost opposite explorations, which I enjoyed quite a bit.
That's a great example of how you begin research. For those who wonder what you could be doing, what you just described is a perfect example of just diving in to answer that question. That subject too is really a really good subject too.
Um, Greg, go ahead.
Just a couple quick thoughts. It when well, just researching research, it's hard to find topics that haven't already been researched to death, and it's also sometimes difficult to let's see how to put it. I think there should be a layer of mentorship involved with this, where you know, for if Darren who just spoke, that's a very interesting topic, and it sounds like he's doing it all alone. He's already doing that. You don't want to steal somebody's thunder, but mentoring, if someone finds a subject and says, "Hey, I'm going to be researching this. Anybody want to come along with me and help out?" That would be tremendously useful.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. Instead of doing research on your own, do research in a small group. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, I was going to answer that is yes, doing it in a small group is perfect because that can help you get your thoughts organized. But approach it from this. You said that, and it's true. It seems like it's daunting because it seems like everything's been done to death. Well, there is still information on those same subjects if you're willing to dig, and you might find that lucky cache of good stuff in your Grand Lodge archives, in your lodge archives. I mean, I'm going to promote this to the ends of the earth because if we can't find it on the internet, it doesn't exist. You have to, it's a use it or lose it thing. But the main thrust of what I'm going to say is what you said inspired me that we don't do enough historiographies, and historiographical research is what has been written, the history of history, what has been written about these subjects. You can take these authors and pit them against each other, analyze their words, right? And write about what has been written about a particular subject. So what did Mackey say about XYZ as opposed to Oliver? And what kind of middle ground can we find? How does it square up against what is true and what we perceive to be true about it, and what happened or in the past? Come up with other anecdotes or historical events that may prove them wrong or an alternative to what they said. That's what you would do in a historiographical debate or paper. So there's entire classes on them. It's very difficult sometimes, but that's a good way to start. If you feel that you can't find your subject, by going through all of these topics, and even for yourself, writing down what these authors have said about a particular subject. That way you can come up with your own questions, right? So history is always, there's nothing is left for chance. It's everything is analyzed and picked apart. And so even subjects that have very little meat on the bones, there's always something left.
Are we not to go into our research with what has been written as gospel?
I don't. So
Well,
I'm not sure what you mean.
You said Mackey wrote something, right? So if I find something that contradicts that, how does that mean? Is what Mackey wrote considered quote unquote gospel, and that that's the way it is? And if you come up with something that has alternative viewpoint on that, or find something where there was error, I mean, how does that sit well with Masonic harmony, etc.?
Well, don't worry about Masonic harmony because that doesn't really have anything to do with it. You're not calling him a jerk or bad mouthing him. You're just stating that I found an error, or what it could be perceived as an error. It's your objective through research. Always research, objective opinion. You're not putting in, well, I think this guy's is because he's wrong, he's stupid. Well, that would be subjective. You're finding evidence through what they wrote and analyzing it. There's no judgment, right? You're not going in there to prove anybody right or wrong. Say you have a subject on, I don't know, Freemasonry and Catholicism, right? You would find these opposing viewpoints or similar viewpoints and approach it from what they said about it. What is okay? Here's the topic: Freemason. How does Freemasonry square up against with Catholicism? What have Catholics said about Freemasonry? And then go through what has been written about it, who said what, and analyze what has been said, what appears to be dodgy, what appears to be true, but in certain circumstances, what appears to be a misinformation, right? And there are no real sacred cows. You must always be polite, I would say, but I don't believe in the sacred cow. Just as long as you're putting something forth um, objectively and with seriousness, right, and not just taking pot shots. Is is that a, answer your
That
question?
helps. That helps.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, historiographies are meant to be the history of history, what has been written about a historical subject. And nobody is, there are experts on in the field, but even so, there are things that are said that don't square up with others, and that's how you keep a dialogue going. I think in Freemasonry, we really do ourselves a disservice because we either have this idea of harmony, and so we don't say anything, or we take everything as gospel and say, "Oh, well, that's been written. It has thus been written, and therefore I must never say anything about this again, because it is thus written." And and that is problematic because what I believe is, and I get this sometimes when I'll someone will approach me about what someone wrote in a paper for, say, Herodom. Well, I don't agree with that. Okay, write a rebuttal. That is what you should do in academia. These guys fight all the time. And if you ever want to see something that's really heavy, look at the responses in the early Ars Quatuor Coronatorums in the late 19th century and early 20th century. They can be pretty intense on each other, and their comments are really interesting. Sometimes you get the perception that they're being mean. Most of them are being critical, and some of them can be downright critical, but with evidence, right? And it's hilarious. And then in later years, people are always very polite, but they will have comments about what should be looked at or what was missed by the author. These are all grist for the mill, and to look at these research journals to see how they interact with the research. History is a conversation. Research is a conversation. As long as we're polite and we approach it with respect and with you've done your homework, right? Then it can be a rewarding conversation. I think we do miss out on that, where in a research lodge, somebody's come to tell you a story. And I know I'm often kind of discouraged when I do my presentations. It's hard when you do a presentation and you expect people to ask questions right off the bat. I've never been good at it myself, but you ask for questions and the room is silent. And so you wonder, have I done the right thing? Right? Or am I just a dancing marionette for somebody's entertainment? And I've come to grips with that. It's all of those things, right? You can be entertainment, but you also will spark some interest. And you want to have a research lodge environment where it's meant to be a conversation. So perhaps in a research lodge's year, you would have a couple um, uh, lectures, but you would have salons in the other meetings where you get together with a small group of brothers with some cheese and wine and grapes or whatever you want to, some sort of, you know, I would say try to be, if you can in your jurisdiction, some sort of elevated refreshments. It doesn't have to be alcoholic, but something that where it just looks nice, and you're there for a purpose, and you can discuss these topics. You can even get together and write your questions and help each other write your questions to the person who came to present for you, and or if it's a member of the lodge, pose those questions to them and interact with it. Right. This will give rise to further ideas where a brother might be inspired to write their own paper as well.
Good point. Thank you. David, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could, kind of a lot of thoughts going through, but just kind of follow up with what the discussion that was just being had. Remember what I've said about 1,000 times, I think, when we talk about research, think about what that word actually means. It's research. You're searching over and over and over again. So just because somebody's done the research and published something before doesn't necessarily mean they had the right answer. They may not have even had all of the information available to them at that time. There may have been things that have come to the forefront since they wrote it that would have changed their opinion. So just because they wrote it, most of the time, at least in academic research, kind of like Brother Kendall was saying, is that it kind of seems like people are arguing and fighting, but they're really just exchanging thoughts and opinions. They may not always agree, they may or may not change minds, but they're sharing that information. Couple of thoughts that I had, kind of going back even to what Brother Kimball was saying about the Ware Lodge of Research. One of the interesting things about the conference was having so many different jurisdictions present and so many different representations of what a research lodge is. And so, again, I'm from the Ohio Lodge of Research, and we actually do not require immediate research from a member who joins. We have two levels. We have an associate membership, and then we have an active membership. So in order to be elevated from associate to active, you have to do some level of research and presentation and so forth. And the idea is that we want to get as many people as possible involved and in starting on that process, even if they're not sure what to do. And so that's kind of what that associate level is for. And what we have found over, recent years especially, is a lot of these brothers are joining and they're very excited and they're very interested, but they're very, very intimidated. They don't have any idea where to begin. And I think it was Brother Kendall that made the comment earlier. I could be wrong on this, but that research is a hobby or a passion. And that's absolutely true. Even at the professional or academic level, somebody is doing the research because they're just absolutely passionate about it, and they found something that they just can't not know more. And even though it becomes hard work, it actually is fun because you're delving into that interest and that curiosity that you had. So one of the things we've been doing in the Ohio Lodge of Research is trying to help people understand, help brothers understand what research is and how to get into it. And although there, at the academic level and the scientific level and the professional level, it can become very and very involved. All research really is asking questions and finding answers. Whatever that question is, whatever that answer is, that's research. And usually when you answer one question, it leads to more questions. And so when we're trying to get new brothers involved into research, it's I think helpful to remind them that they're not going to write a university level or a Philalethes or Harridim level paper on their first try. Okay, maybe there's somebody out there that gets lucky, but for the most part, we got to build to that. You're going to start small and you're going to grow. And as you learn more and you read more, you're going to figure this out. And the last comment I was going to make is Brother Kendall kind of already summarized this with his historiographical approach. Is that one thing we've been trying to institute is what I've just called journal review night. It was something we did when I was in grad school. Basically, you go out and you find somebody else's writings, somebody else's paper that they've written, and you present it to the group. And it helps you figure out what you're interested in. It helps you figure out what good questions are, and it helps you learn how to do research. And so your discussion about that paper or about those papers is not just what was the material in the paper and what can I learn from it, but it's also how did they do their research? How did they come up with these answers? Where did they find their resources? And how did they put it all together? And so that can be as much of a learning opportunity for especially new brothers trying to figure out how to get into research as is anything else that we do. Just a couple thoughts.
Yeah, great points. Ask questions and find answers. It's that simple. Hey, Mario, go ahead.
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Worshipful Brother Brian. It's good to see you as always. Good to see you, everyone. I apologize since I can't put my video on. I'm actually in the car. I had to park just because I was driving home. So I apologize for that.
That's all right.
Well, I do believe that there's a lot that we can do for people that are, interested in research and probably just motivate them a lot more. Because honestly, curiosity will drive you as long as you have the means and the assistance, the mentoring to, go down the right path of finding what you need to know first to post your research, and then to actually make a good analysis after you've read and what you've thought about it. But it does take a specific approach, right? You need to create this sort of plan, and that's I think that's the easy part. But it has to be put together, and that is always my approach to this whole research. I believe we should be a little bit more inclusive with the research part in the education. When we're discussing with members of lower degrees, an entered apprentice, we could go over what they're supposed to know or what they're supposed to be studying, and just promote what they understand and suggest articles on what they can read at their level. I believe that we could do a lot more to institutionalize this and make it a lot more fun, a lot more productive, and sometimes help people understand what research is and do it faster. We have to fight with a lot of misinformation that is out there, which only obscures the path of Freemasonry, even for people who are in the fraternity. And that is a very big step, but we need to to make a to make it feel like an easier path. The truth is, I believe that for an institution that is devout to learning, there is a lot of things that are left pretty much in the air for an individual to learn by himself. And I think we could really help with that. I'm always encouraging people, to get together at in the first presentation that we had in the conference. We were talking about the critical mass, which is a group of individuals that will be able to, or to keep a structure such as a journal alive by the number of papers that they're putting out. And this is very interesting because I think it's the same for any group that you need. I mean, you can't really have a lodge of research without having researchers in it. So sometimes you may not have those in your area, but we can provide the opportunity for people to meet and take advantage of technology and meet by Zoom or other mean. But you have people from far away, and they can get together with you and suggest ideas. And I always think that whenever you have a conversation with someone who has written papers for longer than the person trying to learn research has, you always get good feedback on where to look for, how to find your sources, which material is good, which one is not that good, and definitely which one you should stay away from. And all that is something that it's terribly important for people who's learning. Base like we've been saying tonight, base your research in evidence, in fact, in good-natured facts, not superstition. Staying as close as to the scientific method as you can, so you can be objective about what you're writing. But it's very interesting, and I think we can do a lot more to get this going for everybody if we do a joint effort. And this is one of the things that I'm always trying to push for, that we should get together and talk about research in a more not maybe not I would not say complicated, but I would like to say in a more structured manner to present it for younger brothers and also older brothers that are also interested in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on a few comments that were made earlier. Greg first made that comment about mentoring, and I think that's critically important in the academic world, in research world. I mean, when you start a PhD program, one of the first things you do is pick out who your advisor is going to be. I mean, you literally have a structure where you have to have, an advisor and a group of folks there to serve in that process. So I think that is critical to get this thing off the ground. And then, Adam and David had noted that Adam used the term specifically historiography. In economics, we just say literature review. And that's where every research project starts. I mean, that's in almost every economics dissertation, and probably other fields too. After the introduction, that's really the first section of a dissertation. So that's where you find the questions that you need to be asking by looking at what other people have done and have a coherent understanding of the question you want to resolve. So I do think that there's some basic um, economic or not academic and research tools that have been highlighted here that, when you spend time in academia, you almost take it for granted. And but these things are perfect starting points and perfect tools to use. So that's all I had to add to that.
Thank you, Darren. Gerald, good to see you. I was actually going to call on you. I'm very curious to know your thoughts on research lodges.
Well, it's good to see you again as well, Brother Evans. We enjoyed having you at our lodge in South Pasadena for our recent Masonic Con. And we had a lecture from Brother Kimball in our lecture series just a couple weeks ago. We're kind of the unicorn of research lodges. We're beautiful, but we're not breaking any new ground, really. What we really stress on the review, and I appreciated the comments about research. We, for the first 60 years or so of the Southern California Research Lodge, it was really like a kind of a club newsletter, and we would grab articles from other Masonic publications and just send out a bunch of them, and all black and white and everything. And we're now in our 10th year of the format that we use now. I know you guys are familiar with it because you did a wonderful article a couple of years back on the Masonic uh, tradition of festive boards and such. But what we're presenting each time, we get a topic that we want to we're trying to stimulate interest in the breadth of Freemasonry. So we will get a topic, and it's usually 16 pages, sometimes 20, occasionally 24. But what we do is actually go into, for example, about half of our stuff is actually excerpted from published matter, and we hope that what we excerpt from it makes a good comment on the particular topic, and also would interest somebody that's more interested in that topic to go read the book that we're quoting from. We also have a mixture of some of them are opinion pieces, but original writing as well. But that's similarly compared to things like Quatuor Coronati or the Scottish Rite Research Society or Philalethes. We're not getting really deep into an academic historiography or analysis, and usually even when we print a magazine that would have differing views on something, we don't try to analyze who's right or who's wrong. We'll give you several different reviews. Back in June and July of 23, I did two issues on the Knights Templar and the origins of Freemasonry. And the first one was about the kind of historiography we have within Freemasonry. We have the authentic, which Brother Kendall would be a good example of, and most of the other research, the really top notch ones, and that's one way of looking things. Then you have the traditional histories, like you find in Anderson's Constitution, that makes Adam the first Mason, and just about every significant patriarch in the Old Testament, right on up to whoever was really prominent in the aristocracy were Masons back in the 1700s. But and also this new kind of thing, um, which is a mix of history and mythology, myth history, and just to lay the groundwork for then one of the most popular things among Masons is just exactly what did the Templars have to do with the founding of Freemasonry. And that one was a 24 pager, and it was one after the other articles with different stories from the to that same issue, and let some of them said, it's just total mythology. Others have said that it was completely the truth, and we let the readers decide. But what we're trying to do, and what we've been trying to do for the last 10 years, is point out that Freemasonry is related to so many other things, so many of the ongoing stream of the uh, ancient mysteries, and the not just the ancient wisdom but the ageless wisdom, because it's still going on. And so that's been our approach. um, we have a fairly cheap magazine in terms of what it costs to get it, but we have about 1,300 subscribers, and we get $30 from each one of them. We got about 40,000 bucks to work with, and that's what we do. We enjoy it a lot. One of our things that we really was a big goal for when we started it was to give the real amateur Mason who has some thoughts on a subject a platform to be able to publish something that we very seldom go over 3 pages, and most of ours are 1 and 2 page articles. So we're more like the cheerleaders on the sideline than we are the team on the field.
What's the URL for your fraternal review?
TheResearchLodge.org or .com, either one takes
Okay.
you to the same place.
TheResearchLodge.org. If you're interested in subscribing to the fraternal review, it's definitely worth subscribing to stay in the loop.
Yeah, you can, when you get a 16-page issue, if you sit down and start in on it, you in an hour and a half, you can read the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you then followed up on, gee, let me look at each of the sources that those things came from, you could be occupied for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're trying to do, is get people interested in reading about these things. But we don't we don't pretend that we're really deep researchers.
Yeah. Thank you,
We
Jerry.
print a lot of stuff from really good people. We've printed stuff from Adam Kimball, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Printed stuff from you, and from certainly from Brother Bizak, who I've been an admirer of him ever since I met him the first time at a Masonic Restoration Foundation, and I, I I I'm just a huge fan of his writing, and he does a lot of things like challenging these mythologies, and you find out that Davy Crockett's apron wasn't exactly that Davy Crockett's apron, those kind of things. I enjoy that.
Yeah, that Bizak guy, he's okay.
Yeah, well, the whole bunch of you are there, and I'll give a plug to you guys, just like you did to ours just now. If you've never gone to Lexington and attended one of their festive boards or their conferences, um, they are just extraordinary, and fellowship and the environment and all of that is just as outstanding as anything I've ever done in Freemasonry.
Thank you, Gerald. Good to see you. Tell everyone we said hello.
Well, I certainly do that.
Adam, you wanted to have a follow-up?
Yeah, I wanted to say with Jeriel, great to see you. And what you
You
said,
too, Adam.
I think, yeah, it hits the nail on the head. And I think you really brought it home. What we, in my long-winded approach, and I have a certain outlook that I just kind of follow on my own, but um, the SCRL, Southern California Research Lodge, totally revamped themselves and took what they had been doing before, as you described, gave it a more elevated approach and made it so you could, instead of getting an envelope filled with clippings like you used to, you put it in a readable format, introduced original material. And what you do, and this is and I think another brother mentioned that this was the approach of the Louisiana Lodge of Research, is you provide a forum for the brothers to learn what is out there, because it is so daunting when there's never been, I think it was John Slifko once that said, you need to write a historiography of Freemasonry. Well, I don't know how to begin that. That seemed like science fiction to me. He was convinced it could be done. However, I think that what you guys are doing, and any other lodge that takes this approach, is best. And what you said, Brother Darren, the literature review, or that is 100% what you do in your any class you take, be it sociology or whatever, history, is you could mix what Jeriel said and what Darren said, and you have these exercises because it stimulates the brain. In graduate school in history, you're reading articles in at least 6 books a week, right, out of those 2 or 3 classes you're taking, and you have to do 3-page literature reviews. What is this author doing? What are their sources? What's their thesis statement? How are they proving it? Um, that is such good exercise. And now the average person might say, this is too academic for me. Well, I would say that's actually normal. You can make it fun. But what else, what other purpose does a research lodge have? And that goes back to that early question that came out in that poll. How does a research lodge differ from a regular lodge? And in many cases, there is no difference. And that is unfortunate, because the operative word in research lodge is research, not lodge, right? So having these exercises now, is your membership going to drop off? I can't answer that if you start making them do things, but creating the culture of doing things. If for the average person, the average brother, having something like that without having to pay for a graduate degree or whatever, I think it could be cloaked in with the idea of, out of the humdrum life you have, whatever job you're in, this is different from anything else you will have in life. So if you're interested in history, or we want you to participate, having that one activity, even if they have no aspirations of writing a paper, that's fine. But engaging them, it can only benefit somebody. That small exercise and that literature review or historiography doesn't have to be. A historiography is much broader and it's much longer. So let's just stick with lit review. 2 or 3 pages. What did I think? And start them out slow with that. I think both Jeriel and Darren really hit the nail on the head, and especially Jeriel, with what a good average curriculum for a research lodge is to be. There is a perception that you have to have a fireworks show or be navel gazing, where we're going to produce the finest scholars in the world and we're all going to publish in XYZ and we're all going to team up with AQC or whatever. But what I would like out of that is to grow brothers who want to do this. And so when I was at the annual communication for my Grand Lodge this weekend, I wanted to be next to the fraternal review, but unfortunately we were a couple rows back. And I made it a point for those who did go over to us after, because I saw who was going to fraternal review and was hoping that they would come over to us to talk about Philalethes, and to emphasize that It may seem that these research lodges and research organizations might have some competition. There isn't any. They all have their different approaches. And when you enter into any profession, you have these trade magazines and trade organizations to keep up on the latest tech of your profession. These groups are just that. Now you can choose which ones are, and there are others that are you should join right away. But there's others that they have a focus, and if you're beginning with it, these are great, and they don't require a lot of they're low impact. They're meant to entertain you, and they're meant to inspire you. So if you want to go full bore academic, there's others that will satisfy that itch. Other guys, I'm not interested in that. I just like to learn a few things. Fine, great. All of these serve a purpose. And indeed, when you look at these research organizations, you will see the similar names on their board of directors. How could that not be a conflict of interest? Well, simply they have there's a different foci to these lodges, different ways of approaching research, right? Um, and also with the acceptance that some are going to gravitate towards, say, Philalethes rather than Scottish Rite Research Society, fine. I don't mind. We're all in it for each other's success. So I really like what SCRL has been doing, and that seems to have met with a wide approval. Um, is it a unicorn? Probably for a lot of different jurisdictions, but I think that their approach should, I think, be inspiration for a sort of standard if you could ever ask for one. And that's not just to heap praise. I see what you guys do and I see what others do. And I think that those lodges that are like that, that's a good way to do it, right? And you're going to form a small core group of devotees that actually do that work. Some might drop off because they're not going to do that work, and that's not a big deal. It may be so much more than what they expected. And there are the guys that just like the stories. I would ask them if they are intimidated. Well, I can't write at all. Okay, brother, we'll just try and give us a paragraph. Or if you can't do that at all, how about we'll have you can express yourself for 5 minutes about what you thought. You know, it's not meant to require people it's not meant to embarrass somebody, but to just keep them thinking and to produce something. Now, there are those who are going to turn into something that is far more advanced, and that's fine too. But engaging the brothers, even if they have limitations, I think there's sometimes, even with our normal lodges, some guys, for whatever reason, can't do the memory work or whatever. Well, there has to be some other job for them. We need to be creative in that, and not alienate them, because we are not a graduate level course. Because with graduate level courses, you're either in or you're out. That's it. Right. And as brothers, we don't have that sort of structure, nor should we. But we should expect, if we're doing research, to conform to a certain standard, but work up to that. And there will be those who excel at it better than others, but that's fine. There's still other things for us to do and excite the brothers to learn more. And that's what I really want, are brothers to just be curious and to ask questions. So thank you both for your inspiring words for me.
Well, thank you too, Adam. And really, what we want to do is get the average guy, even that joins Masonry, to realize, what we're teaching, what we're practicing, that has connections with so many things that you just wouldn't have connected it to. But Freemasonry really has had a big influence on society, and in an awful lot of ways. And I did you guys contact the Southern California Research Lodge with your survey and all that kind of stuff? Because I never heard a word about it.
should have, but you've heard now. So if you
I
would
have. I'll I'll
be
I'll
so
go I'll
kind
go
as
on
to,
the website and you'll get something from me in the next few days.
sure, yeah, it certainly was an accident if you didn't receive it, but yes, please take that link
Well,
and
the
share it.
lodge very well may have received it. I'm still very much involved in the editing process and that sort of thing, but not very much in the lodge
Yeah.
government. I was the master for the first 4 years that we were doing this publication, but
No,
I'm
you're
not an
probably right
officer
because it was
now.
announced. It was
Pardon
announced
me?
at the Festive Board and Conference, so it's likely you may not have heard about it. So,
Yeah, that
but yeah,
probably so.
we
Yeah,
would appreciate anyone that like to fill that out. So,
I will do it.
well, brothers, we're going to circle back to Worst Brother John Bizak, who is the current master of the William Ware Lodge of Research. So, Worst Brother John, do you want to close with anything on your mind regarding research lodges from your perspective as the current sitting master?
Well, I'd like to point out that of the 44 research lodges that we were in contact with, 28 of them were part of this, and 15 of them were able to come to this conference. Now, that's 64% of the 44. That's a pretty good return on interest. As Dan was saying, we're lucky to get 20% on surveys. So there is interest in research lodges, and much of that interest is within research lodges. We've emphasized before that if there's an enemy of Freemasonry, it's idleness. And if we're idle, and if we're mimicking what our blue lodges do as research lodges, we simply don't have any business having a charter. We don't get anywhere. So eliminating idleness, I think, is one of the things that came out of the conference, and there was grand agreement about that. I'd like to encourage everyone to take serious the survey. Go to the William Ware Lodge of Research website, upper left-hand corner, just click, find some time to complete the survey. And as a point of interest, while we've been on tonight, we received one survey from someone who is on the program with us tonight.
Right.
So we appreciate that and would encourage everyone to take a look at it, add what you can, add your voice to what we'll publish probably at the first of next year. And again, thank you for your interest in this time.
Great. Thank you, Worshipful. Two more quick messages about the recent Festive Board and Conference. Special announcement, some awards were given that evening. You see here we have Jeremy Patrick and Tracy Burdett on the left, and Roger Kurt on the far right, who were associate members of the Rubicon Masonic Society for the past year and now have become full members of the Rubicon Masonic Society. And then we have four new honorary members. We have David Daughtery, Adam Kendall, David Cameron, and our new current master, Grand Master of Kentucky, Luke Martin. So those were some awards given at the Festive Board and Conference. And there was one more special award given to our very own Worst Brother John Bizak. This was an award that was held pretty secretly between Worst Brother Dan Kimball and I and a few others. We felt it was time to show our appreciation to John for his commitment to Masonic excellence. So we have hereby, the Rubicon Masonic Society has hereby put together the John W. Bizak Award for Masonic Excellence. And of course, the first award had to go to John Bizak. So he graciously took it and half smiled when he did. So we'll have to see who the annual recipient is for next year. And David, it's probably not you yet, but I love you. But seriously, John, thank you for everything that you do for Freemasonry, for Rubicon, for William Ware. We love you. We appreciate you.
Thank
Brian,
you.
Brian, you shouldn't be so mean to most worshipful David Daughtry.
I know. Terrible, aren't I? All right, enough fun. Brothers, our next Masonic education will be November 24th. I don't have my list in front of me, but John, do we have our speaker lined up?
We don't have it confirmed yet, but we'll have an announcement out next week.
Okay. So we will let everyone know. So please mark your calendars, though, Monday, November 24th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
And John,
Also,
could you please inform me that so I can get it listed in the calendar in the fraternal review? Whenever you do, find out who's your speaker.
We'll send it to you, Jerry. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. Worship Brother Kimball, will you want to talk a little bit more about our 10-book challenge briefly?
I will eventually, but I think you've left out another important announcement, Worshipful Brother Brian, and that is that I think it's fitting that we can announce that Worshipful Brother Brian Evans has been named a William O. Ware Research Fellow. And he will be presented with that formally at our annual Festive Board on November 6th. So, Worshipful Brother Brian, congratulations to you
thank you very much.
A research fellow of William O. Ware Lodge of Research.
Thank you.
Now, having said that, I think we're probably in month 4 or 5 now of our 13-month 10-book challenge. And so as of June the 1st of 2025, we have issued the challenge of reading one book about Freemasonry per month in the period June 1st, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026. Select a book about Freemasonry, read it, and let us know what you've read. We love posting book reviews on the William O. Ware Lodge of Research website. So if you're so inclined and you want to write a book review, feel free to send that to us, but let us know what you have been reading. And if you have recommendations for other books, please share that with us as well.
Thank you, Dan. Brothers, this is going to be the final announcement for this marvelous antique Kentucky long rifle. Anyone that sees this and visits wowraffle.org could win this beautiful Kentucky long rifle. You do not have to be a Mason. You don't have to be a man. You don't have to be a woman. You got to be something, I guess. $50 a ticket. You can buy as many as you like. We will hold the drawing at the Festive Board, William O. Ware's Festive Board in November. And I assure you that if your name is drawn, we will make sure you get this beautiful Kentucky long rifle and powder horn. So please go participate. All proceeds go to the William O. Ware Lodge of Research to continue to promote and build upon our library of Masonic research and Masonic education. So for everyone that has participated, thank you for your support. This is definitely a great opportunity. If you're interested in furthering your Masonic education, please visit thecraftsman.org. That's Worship Brother John Bizak's website, where you can learn more and read more about his papers, his books, resources, articles, etc. A lot of fantastic information and resource on this website, thecraftsman.org. John, do you want to mention the Philalethes Society? John, you're muted. Sorry.
I'll defer that to Adam Kendall since he's president of Philalethes now. Are you still on with us, Adam? I don't know if he's still on or not. I can't hear him.
He is. I believe he's muted.
Also. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
I did put on a jacket. So with the Philalethes Society upcoming news, is that what the question was?
Just a brief pitch to the Philalethes Society.
Oh, well, the pitch, I would normally take a show of hands. If nobody's heard of the Philalethes Society, you should. It is the oldest in North America for and indeed in the world, the oldest independent research society in the world. As you know, there are others that are older, but the independence is the part of the key word here, because it is not tied to any beholden to any Grand Lodge or Supreme Council, etc. So it was formed in 1928, almost along the same lines, where it has a spiritual relationship to Quater Coronati and their correspondence circle, in that it follows a similar model where you had the different groups and chapters meeting You had the small core group, and then you had an open society for all. Philalethes Society used to have the chapters, not so much anymore, and we've pivoted in the last number of decades to our flagship, which is the Journal of the Philalethes Society. Right. So it's open to any regular Master Mason. Comes out quarterly. It is not your average rag. It is very well produced. So that's one thing I was pointing out. Very, very good paper. A conscious effort to have readable articles, solid research, but accessible. Um, they average about 20 pages or so or less. Look good on your coffee table. And unlike an annual journal, which I'm in love with, as you know, a magazine is something you tend to pick up and put down all the time. And that's what makes magazines so enjoyable. But it is high quality, wonderful articles. Many of the authors write for the other journals and transactions. But we have a long history of good research. So the dues are $60 per year. You get 4 out of that. If you pay an extra $25, you can get access to our digital database of all of the issues from time immemorial. There is what I want to highlight, and this is one of the best. We always talk about best deals in masonry, right? One of the best things I've ever experienced with any research society is our lodge program, which most lodges, no matter how big they are, have about 50 hardcore members, right? So for $250, you can get up to 50 members digital access for a year. This is a wonderful way to jumpstart your lodge's Masonic education program or for your research lodge, because indeed, many of these articles can be read in your lodge meetings and you can write about them. You could do your lit reviews, right? Our magazine, our journal, just like the other transactions, they're good enough to where you can use them as references in your own research for your sources. So there's multiple uses for the journal, but that lodge program I think is a really good deal and really worthwhile, especially for those who want it in PDF and don't want and it's fully searchable too, by the way. So I highly recommend this for any lodge, but especially a research lodge, because this could be, just as we were discussing today, can be one of the basis by which you can form a curriculum. At least to get the brothers used to what research looks like. Because as I said, my opening spiel was you're going to read and read and read. And by reading these articles and then moving on to others, you can see how they're put together, how the researchers digested the information and expressed it. And through that, you can see how the editors worked. You can see how an article is put together, right? Because that's something that's going to need to be learned when you're doing research, how to organize it to where it's actually readable for people, right? And so I think Philalethes is on the top with this sort of approach, and our interest is to help the average Mason and research lodges. These are our friends, and this is our core group of subscribers. So if that's not a heavy promotion, I don't know what is. But I would say that your Masonic education would be lacking if you did not subscribe, and I don't say that lightly. So. For those of you who don't know, it's a wonderful magazine, and I'm extremely proud of it. We revamped its design, I don't know, about maybe 15 years ago. Our editor is Sean Iyer. He works at the George Washington Masonic Memorial. I've known him for decades. He's a California Mason as well, and one of the finest Masonic scholars out there. So it can be trusted. It is a 4-star magazine.
Great. Thank you, Adam. Some links have been put in the chat, so feel free to visit those links, brothers, whenever you have time. Gentlemen, are there any other final comments before we proceed to close? Well, then I want to thank everyone for joining us again tonight. Appreciate your attendance and your support and your participation. Worship Brother Dan, will you please deliver our closing devotion?
Brothers and friends, join me in prayer. Great architect of the universe, again, we give you thanks for the opportunity that we have had this evening to assemble together, to share ideas, to engage in the exploration of Freemasonry. We ask that you keep us safe until we meet again. Lay your hand of comfort upon those who grieve, your hand of healing upon those who are ill. We pray all this in your holy name. Amen.
So mote be.
Mote be.
Thank you, Dan. Brothers and friends, thank you again so much for joining us. Our next meeting is Monday, November 24th, 7 p.m. You're welcome to send this to anyone that may want to participate. They can RSVP at rubiconmasonersociety.com/RSVP. Brothers, may we always be happy to meet. Sorry to part and happy to meet again. Our closing video this evening is a brief 3-minute slideshow of some of the great photos taken from our recent Festive board and conference. So everyone have a great evening and enjoy. We'll talk to you next time. Good night, everyone.
Good night.